Well, basically we acknowledge no, na medyo ilagay natin sa context. No? After the Lahad Datu incident, there's a significant number of our citizens no, in Malaysia. And they could have just said, look, we don't want any unnecessary risks, we don't want the problem, we'll send them all back home in one, in one movement. And we're talking hundreds of thousands, which would have impacted on their lives, the economies in Mindanao, and actually the Philippine economy. How do you address generating employment for hundreds of thousands, no? And at least a couple of 100,000. No? So we thank them that they were very selective. They were very conscious of what the negative effects are if they send all of them back at the same time. No? We recognize also their anxieties and their concerns. So that was more or less the extent of that discussion on that particular topic. We discussed it. They reminded us, amongst other things, na there was an agreement with my predecessor setting up a consulate in Kinabalu and others. No? Pinagawa yung mga events, significant events with regards to Sabah. No? So, binigyan ako ng timeline. Starting from 1704 to... Sandali lang, wala pa pala sa dulo. Ayan. To 2011. Okay. Pwede bang i-share ko na lang sa inyo ito? Medyo mahirap daanan. Mga 3 pages. Okay. So, parang this grounds us into exactly what transpired in all of these centuries. Now, what is written here is not what is the common or the conventional wisdom or what our people perceive to be. Now, as you know, we tasked Secretary Laila to come up with a study of the Sabah issue. And also, I think we will be going to the UP, one of the institutions under UP, to fully flesh out all of these things. At medyo, just give you some of the very significant. In 1899, there was a so-called Bates Treaty between the Sultan of Sulu and the U.S. The treaty states that the Sultan of Sulu and his principal chief have accepted the succession of the U.S. to the rights of Spain. 1904, nagkaroon na abrogation of the Bates Treaty. Meron rin portion na na-break yung line of succession. Okay. 1986, there was the death of Sultan Mahakuta. It's Mahakutaa Kiram. There has been no recognized Sultan of Sulu since 1986, and there are several claimants to the throne. So, medyo napaka-extensive nung sinid ba ng Sultan yung rights to the U.S. then eventually to us as the Philippine government. At magre-react na naman siyempre yung family ni Kiram. So, we just want to be, this is part of the effort to understand exactly what has transpired. Then we told our Malaysian counterparts, we're not after conflict with anybody. No? But we want to be able to tell our people the real score. No? And in that sense, come up to a consensus based on that which is right. Then I was just informed recently, for instance, yung Kinabalu, na we are being requested to set up a consulate. The DFA, in re-examining all of parang what is claimed to be originally, no? Parang the property of the Sultan of Sulu, does not include Kinabalu. No. Hindi yung buong Sabah. Portions thereof. Now, if you'll ask me exactly what the longitude and the latitude of the territory, I didn't memorize that. I'm sorry. No. So, but that has to be again verified by the historians, by the lawyers, by, okay. Then the end point being, explain to people what is this issue all about, what we can establish as fact, tapos what is the way to move forward. But we are not yet ready to be able to come up with that complete timeline and story. Nagkaroon na call of nature lang actually, pero there was supposed to be, my first briefing was there was supposed to be a slight break between the expanded bylaw tapos yung press con. No? So, tapos, sinamantala ko ng Call of Nature. Tapos right afterwards, sinabihan ako, dumiretso na pala ang ating host. Napatakbo tayo ng di oras. Well, eventually, no, dito muna tayo sa, si MILF commander by the name of Wahid Tundok. No, there was a warrant of arrest issued by Regional Trial Court Branch 15 of Cotabato City. Now, the same order was recalled, no, the warrant of arrest was recalled by the said Regional Trial Court. So there's no basis anymore to detain him, and he was turned over to the appropriate entities. Eventually, you want them to transition from being fighters to being productive citizens. There will be an amnesty provision in the new Organic Act, no, for the Bangsamoro. That, I understand the process is I will propose, no, then Congress will have to act on it. They will have to concur for it to become law. Well, paalala ko lang dati nagkaroon ng Sipadan incident, no? Meron tayong bandits. Tapos nagabdak ng mga tourists in a Malaysian holiday resort. Yeah. Recently, there were Taiwanese abducted in Malaysia, na-rescue to. Pero one of them, the husband, if I remember correctly, died. Okay. So, in effect, yung Abu Sayyaf, amongst other groups, no, is a problem common to both of us. And it behooves us, no, they jump boundaries, to have greater coordination to prevent and forestall, and if not, parang hopefully deter any more activities such as this. No? So, yung addressing the criminality and the banditry is, I think, a common concern. That's what was meant by closer cooperation. Setting up of a hotline, if I can quote the Prime Minister, no, so that you can exchange information that can be acted upon in a more timely manner. Yeah. So, set up niyo yung organization who talks with whom, who alerts the other, how exactly will our forces cooperate with theirs, how do we respect each other's boundaries also at the same time, but how do we make it very difficult for yung criminal-minded elements such as this to play their trade. Yung, by the way, Sipadan, ako na lang dagdag, no? He didn't bring up Sipadan. No? He brought up this issue of the Taiwanese couple. Well, first, yung reformation of their help, no, towards attaining peace in Muslim Mindanao. Yung people are generally aware that they have been helping us, but I don't know how many are aware that they have been helping us for a decade. And there has been expense, there has been effort on their part, no, from the facilitators, the monitoring team, and other components of the peace process. No. Second, the Prime Minister noted that the two-way trade between us is something like $4.5 billion. He notes that we have a very significant population in terms of size, 97. So there is no reason that increased trade between neighboring ASEAN countries should not happen sooner rather than later. But there's so much room to grow than just that 4.5 billion trade. Of course, the security cooperation is also part of it. Now, okay. The other thing that we invited them to help us with, Malaysia is recognized as a country with vast experience in Islamic banking practices. Okay. As you all know, we have a state institution, financial institution that should cater to the banking needs of our Muslim brothers, which is called Alamana. And what Alamana has succeeded in doing from the time it was started was to basically para exhaust the capital that was infused into it. No, so much so that the Department of Finance has told us that there is no Islamic banking capability or expertise in the country. That's why we are, the MILF has been asking that it be turned over to them, no? Or we will actually sell the entity so that a new entity with the necessary expertise will be able to service the banking needs in conformity with the principles of Islam. No? And also end the continuous drain on our resources of an endeavor which we have no skills at. No? So they agreed, they were willing to provide initially technical assistance, no, as far as Islamic banking and financing are concerned. But they're asking if we were inviting them to purchase the same. No? Siyempre, it would behoove us to get the people who are considered experts. Especially given the fact that they are an ASEAN brother nation. So they will, that has to be worked out. Wala pang finality dun. First time that we proposed it to them. As early as parang the 70s, in-identify na yung national grid, no? It's like, parang think of it as a solitary road. And anytime you block the road at any portion, the whole road is blocked. Okay, so in the early 70s, there was I think it was a cadet at the PMA at the time who was identifying the vulnerability natin yan. Now, you would want to have a replication of this grid, but it is very, very, very expensive. And right now, the priority is really to complete the establishment of facilities after Yolanda. Okay. Now, what happened in Mindanao was there was a condition called tripping. No, really correct me if I'm wrong. No? In effect, parang there's a short circuit in the grid. Then all the power plants will go offline to protect themselves. Okay. Now, you will have to restart the power plants or reintroduce them to the grid one by one to be able to isolate where the short happened. If you turn them on all at the same time and reintroduce all of this power into the grid, then you will induce the tripping again. Kasi yung short circuit hasn't been done. They have traced the source of tripping to the vicinity covered by Agus 1. Okay. Now, I understand, okay na yata yung grid. Kasi I got this yesterday, no, before leaving. And the power supply, however, is at 80 to 85%. Gano'ng katagal ang startup ng coal? It's called STEAG, STEAG ang pronunciation. STEAG coal plant, no, which is in Cagayan, 200 megawatts, is still completely down. So this will result in about 3 hours brownout during the peak hours, and no brownouts during the off-peak hours. Right? How do you prevent it? Alam niyo amongst the other things, when you look at the transmission lines, you will notice, diba, that there are so many lines where there are no populations. Yeah. Now, I actually asked that at the beginning of my term. How do we actually guard all of these lines? No. Yung after Yolanda, can we bring down those lines and bring them underground? Sagot sa akin, pag underground, it will be more difficult to determine sa inyong mga breakages. No? Then you will have to, diba, unearth them. As opposed to pag yung nasa taas, visual ka agad, nakikita mong dito putol na. Okay. Now, also may socio-cultural issue doon. Pag binabaraw natin itong lines, in underground mo, easier to steal, no, the lines themselves, and easier to hide. You're stealing them. Kasi babalik mo lang yung lupa, subukan mo hindi mapakita disturbed. No? So, the solution there is yung lines will be, there's supposed to be new technology na, di ba pag tingnan natin para isang continuous line lang yun, there's a connector that, di ba pag dumating kanyari, a very strong wind, no? That will tear off a portion. That junction will tear off rather quickly so as not to, di ba, pag collapse itong tower na ito, mag-induce ng domino effect on all the other towers in that particular line. That is also being worked out right now. Siyempre, we're also checking whether or not, well, there is a bill pending in Congress right now, in the Senate in particular, filed by Senator Trillanes, that will authorize us to use Malampaya funds, for instance, to go into repairing the grid, no, in the transmission lines. In the recent Supreme Court decision, narrows us down to exploration and exploitation. Yeah? Now, yung exploitation portion naman, sa totoo lang, the national government, especially NAPOCOR, cannot go into power generation under IPIRA. Wala na rin tayo doon sa distribution. No? So, parang natira yung exploration, medyo napaka-unworkable. The fund is substantial. It's over 100 billion, yung Malampaya Fund. Pag sinabi mong exploration, tayo maghahanap, pero marami ng private entities willing na i-risk yung capital nila to be able to find the producing wells. Pag natahanap natin, exploit, pero hindi tayo pwede pumunta sa power generation, hindi tayo pwede pumunta sa distribution. Parang in short, parang sinasabi ata, hindi na natin gagamitin yung Malampaya Fund. That's why there is this law that will correct the presidential decree that governs how to utilize the Malampaya funds. Well, for the entire country, Luzon, Visayas, I don't think there's an issue, no? Pero Mindanao, I'm sure, no? may predictions for instance na El Nino year. El Nino mag-i-impact sa hydro. Yung hydro is a very substantial portion of the power in Mindanao. If you remember, we were offering a loan facility to set up yung generators that will use diesel. Na nung walang kuryente, yes. Nung dumating yung rainy season, nakalimutan na nila. There were, I think, only 2 or 3 takers. Yeah? Now, there are other, para if there are shortages, we understand are already advanced in our discussions with the private entities that hold in generating capabilities. Mababawasan ba? Sa totoo lang, ayaw ko lang. No? Dahil wala naman talagang sumang-ayon na between now and 2015 na mag-o-online yung other base load plants. Well, actually remind me, 2012, 2013, kailan ba natin sinasabi na 2013, hindi, pero yung stopgap. 2012, 2013, pag walang kuryente, receptive lahat. Pag may kuryente dahil umuulan na, biglang wala na namang interesado. So, we have been warning that there is that possibility. Is it a certainty? No. The identified private entities that have the generating capacity are still, I understand, still willing to help ease that burden. Kaya lang nga, the base load plants will be online starting 2015, especially for Mindanao. Even during the time na nagsarado Malampaya, one of the points that was raised to me was that there was excess generating capacity that should have kept the prices stable. Right? That is subject of an investigation right now. The prices were not stable. Why? Yung number 1, independent office yung ARC, Andre Pira. Number 2, para may general concept na the president has the power to appoint, then comes within the power to dismiss. But in this particular case, dapat ipakita yung cause. Can be removed from office by cause or due cause. Okay. To get to the point of a declaration ng cause, kailangan may process. So the process, I understand it. The last feedback I got to us, she was asked to reply. She has been directed or told to reply to the complaints against her. And parang they are awaiting her reply on the first complaint. Ngayon to second complaint, hopefully to expedite the process, baka naman pwede consolidate with the first complaint. But in as much as I haven't been given the details by the Deputy Executive Secretary for Legal Affairs, medyo ilang alam ko at this point in time. But having said that, our laws recognize, di ba, yung innocent until proven guilty and the requirement for undertaking the due process aspect. And I think it behooves us to implement all the laws in the land that we have to adhere to giving her due process, which is to give her a chance to reply to the same before rendering a decision. Tinatrabaho na from the start. Maraming ginagawa. Number 1, may investigasyon. No? Bakit ba, sorry kung sarang plaka na, di ba? Pero scheduled itong shutdown ng Malampaya, mawawala yung ilang power plants sa pinagkukuhanan ng distributor at hindi biglaan. So dapat nakahanap ka ng pampalit. Yeah? Mukhang hindi nahanap yung tamang pagpalit at napakalaki ng sinipa ng kanilang cost of yung cost na pinapasa sa kanila ng generators. Bakit nangyari yon? So ang dami ng kuro-kuro, ang dami ng opinion. Tinatapos ng DOE, maski na hindi sila natokang, sa batas hindi sila talagang tinokang mag-conduct ng investigation, ERC to, ERC's responsibility. But they are conducting the same. And baka, huwag na muna sabihin yung partially sinabi sa akin dahil baka magkaroon ng wrong idea. But having said that, so we're working on kung amongst the schemes na kinakausap, tinatrabaho ng DOE, is talking for instance to Meralco na kung magkakaroon man kayo ng increase, number 1, tinatrabaho natin palitin yung increase. Number 2, yung point na babayaran ng consumer to is spread out natin for a very long period. Ngayon, to make that happen, we are also considering, and we have the finances readily available to take care of the interest charges of Meralco for them to be able to distribute, not in a period of 1 month or 2 months, but perhaps in a year or 2 years, yung pag-recover nung appropriate cost. I have to stress, appropriate, as opposed to yung siningil na. And yung ano yung appropriate will be determined by ERC, no, as the regulating entity. And pwede rin tayo sumama kung palagay natin mali pa rin yung figure na yun. Number one, hindi ko nabasa. No? And number two, I'm sure he's aware, no, that we have promoted the responsible parenthood bill, no, precisely to address the issue of yung children that are not being taken care of by their families. No? That is a matter before the Supreme Court. No? But even without that, there has been a reduction in the population growth rate. No? Poverty, yung hirap kasing sumagot na hindi parang nagkumukulang ng paggalang sa nakakatanda. But I think the record is there. No? When he was president, the population stood roughly about 50 million. No? And the problems, I assume, no, especially in the wanted economic growth under his term, could have been addressed. Sorry, let me try and phrase that properly. Addressing the needs of 50 million is definitely less than addressing the needs of 97 million. Now, what can we say sa employment, no? Hindi ba umasa na lang ba kami na may manna from heaven? TESDA has over 500,000 graduates, no? And at least 62% of those that they graduated found jobs. No? Hindi lang naman ako siguro nakakita doon sa mga apply with us sa BPO, bibigyan ka pa ng breakfast. Or bibigyan ka ng, pag tinanggap ka ng BPO, yun na nagsisisi ako, hindi ko nakunan yung billboard na your chicken dinner at Max is on us after you get hired. Ayaw ko nakakita na kayo na gano'n. Or yung karsada papunta ng Caloocan, Bonifacio yata, nakasunod-sunod yung construction, ay heavy equipment. Tapos ang dami nakapaskil na wanted, backhoe operator, wanted bulldozer, wanted yan. So, why did I bring that up, no? Tsaka tumingin na kayo ng immediate hiring, at saka hindi na unskilled ang hinahanap dun. Di ba? Noong araw pag nakakita ka ng poste, di ba? Expert tubero. Ngayon, ako lang ba nakakita nung talagang lahat na lang pwedeng paskilan na naghahanap ng empleyado, ginagawa na. No? Now, parang sorry nahirapan lang ako sa magod dyan dahil tinuruan ako huwag magkarga ng sariling bangko. No? Tambay na siguro magsabi kung may ginagawa kami o wala at core effect. Now, iba naman, bigyan naman natin ng sufficient time. For instance, this year lang mag-uumpisa yung PPP, yung 4Ps natin to include the high school. No? And the population that will be addressed, the population segment is 4.4 million families starting 2014, pati high school. Hindi na grade school lang, pati high school. Okay? Pag nakagraduate ng high school, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies has come up with a study that says there's a 40% premium if you graduate from high school. Okay? Tapos, tignan na rin yung lahat itong infra. No? Yung TPLEX, for instance, is already inducing an increase in parang prices, for instance, for the Baguio Golf and Country Club. Yung real estate in Baguio. Wala pa yung TPLEX sa paanan ng Canon. No, 2015 pa lang yun. How about yung portion namin sa Tarlac na tumataas na rin ang land values because TPLEX has already been opened? Well, siguro then, thank you for the reminder and we have not forgotten that these are our primary concerns. Ganun lang siguro ang tama sagot dyan. I think I brought it up as one of the discussion points before the bilateral, yung expanded bilateral. Tapos, niwanag natin that there's been this reported recent issue naman on Scarborough with, hindi water cannon raw, no? Fire hose ang nire-report sa akin ngayon. We have affidavits from the fishermen involved. Yung unofficially, well, natin sabihin, pabayaan na natin yung Chinese side to talk of their position there. Now, in Malaysia reiterated that they are for the settlement of all of these disputes under international law, specifically under UNCLOS, no? Peaceful, and which is also our position. So there was a reiteration that there is they also paid special emphasis on ASEAN centrality, no? Para may cohesiveness at may unity tayo. And again, we agreed with that. Sabi na, there is a problem, even in ASEAN alone, kunyari sa practice, multilateral, for claimant countries and China. and Taiwan. So, yung ang point natin doon, minumukay sa atin, pag-usapan natin to bilateral, tayong dalawa lang. Sagot natin, maganda nga nag-uusap tayo, pero isama na natin lahat ng ibang, di ba? Meron ring claims dito. Multilateral yung problem, dapat multilateral yung solusyon. Para pag natapos nung pinagkasundoan ng lahat na solusyon, na-solve na for everybody. Hindi pwedeng dalawa lang tayo mag-usap, tapos lahat ng ibang may interest rin dito, isasangayin lang doon sa pinag-usapan natin dalawa. Yun ang posisyon natin at inulit lang natin sa lahat. Sila rin in agreement, no? Na parang dapat nga talaga may sulong, lalo na yung code of conduct rin.
Napag-usapan niyo ba na pwede niyo i-push sa ASEAN yung gano'n na position?
Medyo ang dami na namin pinag-usapan na parang may general agreement lang yata na yung both are anxious to have that code of conduct.
How does it feel po na parang may kakampi ang Pilipinas ngayon?
Matagal naman tayo may kakampi na rin from the start. Baka naman dapat yung Vietnam mo magsalita na sa wakas may kakampi na nasali tayo dito. But there are other countries, no? Perhaps, I think, parang isang point na sabi na mas vocal lang raw tayo. But I think all other countries share, no, the same core beliefs. Even China, no, has said the settlement has to conform to international law. And we believe international law that is appropriate is the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. We may, something to the effect that we may choose different paths towards the same goal. Something to that effect.
Thank you.